Machine Learning for Neonatal Intensive Care, Informing the Most Difficult Decisions by Andrew Hetherington. A tiny new human is surrounded by machines and sensors. A doctor looks on in concern. She knows the odds. 29%. That's the survival rate for a baby born at 23 weeks. She puts that thought aside and concentrates on what she can do. The Neonatal Intensive Care Unit, or the NICU, is an environment in which life-changing decisions are made. Neonatologists use information from a variety of sources to build up a picture of a newborn's condition to ensure that they're receiving the right medical care. These are highly trained specialists, and they use their judgement in tandem with a constant stream of patient data to ensure that as many infants can go home with their parents as possible. It is an immensely difficult task to correctly interpret all this data and to identify what the appropriate care is to give. But machine learning is being used to identify and develop ways in which these decision-making processes can be enhanced. Here are 4 ways in which machine learning is being applied to improve patient outcomes in this most important of areas. First up, birth asphyxia. This is a condition which occurs when a baby is not receiving enough oxygen immediately before, during or after the birth process. It's the 5th largest cause of death in children under 5, and if it's not treated quickly enough, it can frequently cause long-term disabilities and impairments. There are a number of tests which can be used to diagnose this condition, and it's not so much a problem in well-equipped hospitals who have access to these kinds of things. But despite these procedures, the symptoms may not always be immediately apparent until it's too late. And in particular, hospitals in certain developing nations may not have the equipment or the infrastructure to be able to routinely perform the conclusive tests needed. Ubenwa is a mobile application that uses techniques from the field of speech recognition to detect early signs of birth asphyxia in a recording of a newborn's cry. In 2015, Charles Onu developed a prototype machine learning model that could correctly classify recordings of known asphyxiating infants with an accuracy of 89%, albeit in a lab setting. In 2017, Charles and his team built this model into a prototype mobile app, which has the potential to become a widely accessible tool that could be deployed to resource-poor environments. One major barrier, though, is the lack of clinically annotated data, i.e. recordings of babies crying, with and without the condition. Charles and others at Ubenwa have, though, recently explored the idea of transfer learning to learn the representations from adult speech to apply to this new type of data in an effort to overcome this lack of training data. The second area we're going to talk about is the detection of neonatal epileptic seizures. It's a serious condition that requires immediate emergency care. If it goes undetected and untreated, brain damage and even death can result. Unlike in older children and adults, seizure symptoms aren't always clinically visible in babies, which makes them difficult to detect. The only reliable method of detection is the monitoring of the electrical activity of the brain. This is done by using something called an electroencephalogram, or an EEG for short. But these signals, as you can imagine, are being produced constantly, and a trained professional is typically needed to properly interpret the output. In 2011, Temco and co-authors published a paper in which they describe how they trained a machine learning model to classify segments of EEG activity into seizure and non-seizure events. Their model can be tuned depending on the level of false positives that can be accepted. But the key thing here is, even when it's tuned to a level where there are no false positives indicated, it's still able to detect over 50% of seizures, which is a significant achievement. The next condition we're going to talk about is sepsis. Now, this is a condition that occurs when the body is overreacting to an infection, and the subsequent immune response starts to cause damage to the body's own organs and tissues. Now, babies born prematurely, this is a really threatening condition for them, and early diagnosis is critical to maximising the chance of a good clinical outcome and the recovery. But the difficulty is that the symptoms are often non-specific, which gets in the way of that. In 2019, MacLeod and co-authors set out to see whether machine learning models could be used to recognise infant sepsis 4 hours before it became clinically suspected. They trained 8 different machine learning models on 30 features which were selected with the help of domain expertise and included vital signs and the results of various clinical assessments. They found that 6 of those 8 models performed well, achieving AUCs of 0.85 to 0.87. And now further research is underway to determine whether these models can improve clinical efficiency in a trial setting. Finally, neonatal respiratory distress syndrome, or NRDS, is among the leading causes of death in the first month of life. Even in developed countries, the mortality rate can be as high as 60%. And as well as that, a significant proportion of infants that survive go on to develop life-altering impairments. In 2016, digital diagnostics company Syme announced that it had developed a test that could accurately predict which babies are at risk of developing NRDS. Their test makes use of a device that passes a beam of IR light through a sample of gastric fluid, which is a substance that is routinely collected from an infant at birth. This produces a unique digital signature, and that's piped into Syme's IA tools to predict NRDS with a high degree of sensitivity. In turn, this allows doctors to tell which babies need treatment and which don't, and that ensures that timely care is delivered and it reduces the need for unnecessary procedures. So to sum up now, I can't help but feel a stir of emotion when I see a picture of a tiny infant on a ventilator. Beyond our evolutionary instincts to protect and support children, I think there's a deeper sense of value that comes with each new life. Behind those bright and curious eyes, there's a unique set of ideas and perspectives that would go on to change the world. And each infant that can't be saved is a loss for us all. If we could increase the survival rate for infants in the NICU, even by a single %, who knows what new ideas would be brought forth. Machine learning and artificial intelligence can help us unlock this latent human potentiality, one model at a time. Thanks very much for listening. This has been Machine Learning for Neonatal Intensive Care by Andrew Hetherington. You can connect with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/in/AndrewMHetherington, and you can check out the written version of this article at andrewhetherington.com. The intro and outro music is Backbay Lounge by Kevin MacLeod. You can find the link at https://incompetech.filmmusic.io/song/3408-backbay-lounge. You can find the license at http://creativecommons.org/licenses/by/4.0/. See you next time.